There's a force lurking inside the atoms that make up everything you see. The walls around you, the air, your own body. That is millions of times more powerful than the burning of any fossil fuel. What actually happens inside a nuclear power plant? And why do splitting atoms turn into the electricity that runs our civilization? To answer this, let's start at the heart of the action: the atomic nucleus. Uranium, dense, silvery, and just unstable enough, is at the center of the story. Picture a uranium atom. Its nucleus is packed with protons and neutrons, all huddled together in a tiny space under immense tension. Left alone, most uranium atoms go about their business. But every so often, a neutron comes along, slamming into the nucleus and setting off a chain reaction. This act is known as nuclear fission. The nucleus breaks apart, splitting into two smaller nuclei and releasing more neutrons and an immense burst of energy. That energy comes not from burning, but from a fundamental reshuffling of matter itself. This is where Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, quietly stands behind the scenes, turning a tiny bit of mass, almost too little to even register, directly into energy. Imagine that in a single commercial nuclear reactor, approximately 200 million electron volts are produced from just one uranium nucleus splitting. That's much more than any chemical reaction can supply. But the real magic is what happens next. The new neutrons shoot off and strike other uranium nuclei, each time repeating the process, amplifying the pulse of energy. The reaction, left unchecked, would escalate exponentially. This is what happens in a nuclear bomb. But inside a power plant, engineers harness and carefully control this powerful reaction. How exactly do they control it? The answer is with moderators and control rods. The uranium fuel, often in the form of small ceramic pellets, sits tightly packed together in fuel rods inside the reactor core. Moderators, usually made of water or graphite, slow down the neutrons, making it more likely for them to collide with more uranium nuclei. At the same time, control rods made from special materials like boron or cadmium can absorb neutrons and slow or stop the chain reaction altogether. It's a delicate balancing act. Enough neutrons to continue the chain reaction steadily, but not so many that it spirals out of control. Why go to all this trouble? The answer: to convert this invisible nuclear power into something incredibly useful: heat. The fission reaction inside the reactor core generates intense heat, enough to raise the temperature of the surrounding water to hundreds of degrees Celsius. At these pressures, the water becomes superheated, often staying liquid at temperatures where it would otherwise boil. The hot water, in turn, is used to make steam. To picture this, imagine the inside of a gigantic, reinforced kettle. The reactor heats water so that it turns to high-pressure steam, which is then channeled to spin huge turbines, much like the wind spins the blades of a windmill. The spinning turbines are connected to generators, which use electromagnetic induction to turn that motion into electrical current. Suddenly, the abstract force released from a splitting atom is converted, step by step, into the same kind of electricity that charges your phone or lights up a city. It's the ultimate transformation. Mass converted to energy, then to heat, then to steam, motion, and finally to electric power. Let's pause and consider the scope of this process. A single uranium pellet, about the size of the tip of your finger, contains as much energy as nearly a ton of coal. With so much energy packed into such a tiny package, it's possible for a nuclear power plant to generate gigantic amounts of electricity from just a small amount of fuel. This is why nuclear power is seen as an efficient solution for producing baseload electricity. There's just so much energy per unit of fuel. But as the story of nuclear power unfolds, there are always shades of both potential and peril. While fission is what drives electricity production in nuclear plants, it's also what underlies nuclear weapons. The principles are the same, but the execution couldn't be more different. In power plants, the chain reaction is precisely moderated. It's a measured, sustained release of energy, not a runaway explosion. And what about the waste? Nuclear fission doesn't just leave behind electricity. The process creates radioactive byproducts, atoms that are unstable and continue to emit radiation for decades, centuries, or longer. Spent fuel rods are stored on site in pools of water, which shield against radiation and cool the rods for several years before they're moved to dry storage casks. Disposal of nuclear waste remains a challenge for every country that uses this technology. Yet, despite this challenge, the core physics of nuclear power plants, chain reactions, heat creation, steam generation, turbines, remains fundamentally the same as it was in the first reactors built over half a century ago. The design has become more refined and safety-focused, but the steps have persisted. Harness the energy from splitting nuclei, convert it to heat, drive a turbine, and send electricity out to power the world. Consider the philosophical implications. Human beings have learned to take an invisible energy at the heart of matter and turn it into civilization's workhorse. This is more than just practical engineering. It's a kind of modern alchemy. The idea that the smallest building blocks of the universe can be manipulated, carefully and deliberately, to serve vast human needs is astonishing and a little unsettling. A poet once wrote, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." Maybe the poet didn't know about uranium, or about the enormous power tucked inside a nucleus, but there's something dreamlike about the whole enterprise. Humans, extracting immense energy from the hidden depths of reality. Reflect for a moment. Every time you see the cooled plume rising from a power plant's tower, you're witnessing the visible mark of this invisible force. Inside those containment domes, human ingenuity keeps a chain reaction balanced, neither too hot nor too slow, quietly powering millions of homes. Is nuclear power the ultimate answer to our energy needs, or is it simply a bridge to some deeper solution we've yet to find? That's the debate that continues, as advances in renewables and questions about safety and waste remain unresolved. Yet the achievement stands. With nuclear power, civilization has figured out how to turn the primal forces that bind the universe together into light, heat, and progress. To return to our story, inside every nuclear plant is a carefully orchestrated performance. Fuel rods stacked in the core, moderators surrounding them, slowing neutrons just enough for more fission, control rods ready to drop and absorb neutrons, ready to halt the reaction if needed. Water heats, turns to steam. Steam spins turbines. Turbines create electricity. It's easy to forget the complexity hidden beneath the simple act of turning on a light. But deep within, it's a story of balance and harnessing nature's fundamental processes. Imagine standing at the control panel of a reactor. Every dial, every gauge, every display represents not just a technical detail, but a safeguard. Because in nuclear power, control is everything. Too little, and the chain reaction fizzles out. Too much, and the danger multiplies. Engineers design with multiple layers of safety. Backup cooling systems, thick concrete shields, containment domes, precise procedures for every contingency. The human element, the training, the protocols, the constant vigilance, stands shoulder to shoulder with the physics, reminding us that, for all our brilliance, the universe's power is something that must be respected and understood. Yet, for all its safeguards, nuclear power is still a story about risk. Accidents can and have happened, sometimes with consequences that echo for decades. The images of Chernobyl and Fukushima serve as lasting reminders of what's at stake when the balance is lost. But the everyday reality, for most plants, is long stretches of quiet, stable operation. Turbines spinning, electrons flowing, lights burning bright. Here lies another philosophical thread. Technological progress is always a trade-off, a calculus of benefits weighed against potential costs. Nuclear power delivers energy security, low carbon emissions, and the possibility of a stable future grid. The price is eternal vigilance, technological complexity, difficult questions of waste and safety, and the inescapable consequence that nature's power, once harnessed, can rarely be put fully back in the bottle. There is a line from ancient philosophy that rings true here. The measure of a man is what he does with power. In the nuclear realm, this isn't just metaphorical, it's literal. What we do with the power at the core of matter is a test of our responsibility, our foresight, and the story we want to write for the energy future of humanity. In the end, nuclear power is about possibility, the possibility of energy almost without end, packed inside a handful of fuel, the possibility of civilizations powered not by burning or by sunlight or wind, but by the subtle rearrangement of the atomic world, and the possibility, too, of answering ever larger challenges: climate change, resource scarcity, the needs of billions using the deep science that underpins the universe. So the next time you flip a switch and light floods the room, remember, hidden behind that simple gesture is a story as old as the stars and as new as today's technology. It's a story about atoms splitting apart, about engineers carefully orchestrating the dance of neutrons, and about the delicate balance between unlocking nature's secrets and living with their consequences. Nuclear power isn't magic, but it's about as close as physics gets. And it's one more way the science of the universe shapes our world, every second, with every spark, in ways we're still learning to understand.